Welcome to this video on windshield removal and replacement. It will cover the basic steps for removing and replacing most structural glass in modern vehicles. As we can see, this windshield sustained a chip, which has expanded, requiring the replacement of the windshield. Always research and follow OEM procedures, and in this case, we're starting off by removing the necessary trim, including the cowl, the wipers, the outer A-pillar and inner A-pillar trim, known as the garnish and reveal moldings. At the top of the windshield where it meets the roof, we have masked with masking tape and then duct tape over top to provide a few layers of protection in case we accidentally slip, which could prevent scratching or gouging the paint. We're going to start off with a reciprocating tool such as this one to remove the glass, which at one point in time was one of the most common and popular tools for glass removal, but it can in fact be problematic and cause damage if you're not careful. As seen here, we're using a tool, in this case a putty knife, to prevent the blade from accidentally hitting the paint and damaging the vehicle. A reciprocating tool such as this is very loud and aggressive. Make sure to wear the proper PPE such as hearing protection, safety glasses, and cut-resistant gloves such as the Kevlar ones I'm wearing here. As you proceed to use a tool such as this, make sure that you're watching what you're doing. In this case, I'm standing outside the vehicle so I can watch the blade as it starts to cut through the urethane bed so I do not hit the body on the vehicle. If I were to hit the body, I could scratch and damage the paint, and if you were really aggressive, you can actually penetrate through the metal, damaging the metal, which could require replacement of the actual body panel. As you continue on through the corner, try to use the edge of the knife or the blade rather than the flat suction. That will help you cut through. The next tool is a cold or pull knife as seen here. This one has a quick release blade, which you can pull the handle out to replace the blade or adjust the blade length, making it longer or shorter. There are different styles of blades that can be purchased. This is one of the oldest and most effective tools for removing glass, but does require a fair bit of strength. You also need to make sure that you hold the tool securely. If the tool were to rotate on an angle, it could crack the glass. It could also nick or damage the paint on the vehicle. But as seen, it can cut very fast, but has limited access and can only be used in certain places on certain vehicles. As you're cutting, gentle pressure on the glass can help you cut. But as you apply gentle pressure, you may feel areas that haven't released, in which case, grab an Olfa knife such as this and cut through that urethane to make sure it does release all the way through. This may happen in areas where you started and stopped with a tool. The remainder of the glass is going to be cut out with this string tool, and this particular one is referred to as a spider tool. This is one of the most commonly preferred tools today, as it is the least likely to damage the paint or body on the vehicle. We start off by inserting some of this string material into the vehicle and make sure that we pull out enough to anchor the string. In this case, 1 foot to 2 feet should be ample. And then go around and make sure that the string is distributed underneath the glass as close to the urethane bed as possible. We want to make sure that we go either around the entire glass, or you may only choose to do part of the glass. In this case, I'm doing 2 sides. If the urethane is going to be hard to cut, on some glass, I may even prefer to only do 1 side at a time. But in this case, I'll do the remainder of the windshield, the 2 sides. So I'll string this wire along here, placing it underneath the glass, again, as close as possible to the urethane bed. Keep in mind, if there are any plastic retainer pegs in the glass anywhere, which sometimes are seen in the top corners of the windshield, the material may not be able to cut through it and in fact could actually snap your string. So be cautious of that. You may need to pre-cut those or use a different tool in those areas. Check OEM procedures. Many OEMs do actually recommend this particular tool for glass removal. Some vehicles will have a rubber molding around the glass, in which case we need to place the string behind the rubber molding underneath it as close to the urethane bed as possible. As you use this string to cut the glass out, it will cut whatever's in its way if the material is soft, such as this molding. If the string gets too close or pulled into something that is hard, such as metal, it will actually snap the string, requiring you to reset up the entire tool, repeating the entire process, which can be a waste of string and a waste of time. Make sure you get it in there as far as you can, which may take a little bit of time using these tools. On the inside of the vehicle, we are going to set the anchor. I'm wrapping the string around the set screw end of the anchor and tightening it securely, and then making sure not to place the anchor over crack as it will not stick. Place the anchor on the windshield and apply the suction cup. If it doesn't stick, try again. If you continue to have issues, it may be an issue with the windshield being dirty. Clean the windshield and try again. The other end of the string will be fed through this tool, and then it's going to go around this barrel, and you may choose to insert the string and tie it, although tying isn't always necessary if you're careful, but sometimes a loose knot will help with the initial pulling of the string. Get the string set in there, and then this anchor is also going to be placed on the windshield. Again, making sure that we do not place this anywhere where there's a crack or where the windshield is dirty. This particular tool does prefer you to turn the string in the counterclockwise direction, so to the left. Place the anchor in an appropriate direction, and what we want to do is have the string come on a backwards angle over the urethane to help it cut. If the string is just being pulled taut, you will in fact snap the spring. When you're ready to start cutting the glass, use either a drill or a ratchet to start the cutting action. Make sure to go at a moderate pace and watch the string. If anything is struggling, stop and reposition. Also continue to watch the angle of the string. As mentioned, you want the string to pull backwards over the urethane to help with the cutting action. Otherwise, extreme stress will be applied to the string, which will cause the string to snap. Continue this process as you start cutting through, and again, make note of any issues that you're having and readdress as necessary. Here, I'm placing this tool, this protector, in place of the dash to make sure that I do not, in fact, damage the dash panel as we cut. The string can get hot, and even if the string does not get hot, the pressure of the string will be enough to cause permanent damage to the dashboard or any other trim. So make sure to use any protective devices as necessary where necessary. As we continue to cut, we have to keep repositioning the tool and making sure that it does stick securely to the glass with the suction cup, thus the pumping action, and then we can continue cutting. As we cut, keep repositioning the protective device against the dashboard so we don't, again, create any damage. And you'll notice here that the anchor is going to wind up in the way. So in this case, I'm going to have to reposition the anchor. Make sure that as you reposition everything, the angle still continues to cut in a backwards fashion to help alleviate the cutting of the glass. The easier the machine works, the less likely it is for the string to snap, and the easier the cutting action will be. As you can see, this windshield is cutting out very easily with this tool because it's been placed on the vehicle correctly and is being continued to be used in a correct fashion. As always, make sure you wear your PPE, so as you can see, cut-resistant gloves are still worn. You never know if the glass could crack or shatter, and those shards could get in your eyes, on your hands, or anywhere else, which could again cause some injury. I'm also wearing some hearing protection as being inside the vehicle, there is a lot of echo sounds, which can in fact cause permanent hearing loss with tools such as this. Here we can see the old urethane bed after the windshield has been removed. We see a few different finishes based on the different tools that were used to remove this particular windshield. As we have a look at this, we want to make sure that we do clean it up before installing the windshield using appropriate scraping tools. We want to make sure that we clean the old urethane bed down to a sound substrate or sound surface, which means in most cases, as per vehicle manufacturers and the manufacturers of the windshield urethanes, approximately a 1 millimeter bed height. In this case, we're going to get the urethane as close to the body as possible, sticking as close to that 1 millimeter height, but it's probably going to be a little bit shorter in certain areas because this vehicle has had different types of glass and urethane applied over the years. Clean this bed up, making sure that we remove anything loose or any flaps that could potentially cause a leak or poor adhesion down the road. As we go through here, make sure that we do our best to prevent any damage to the vehicle body, any seam sealers such as what we see in the corner here, and of course prevent damaging the paint going to bare metal. Here we're using some protection to make sure as we trim the top we don't accidentally damage the headliner. Always check the use by dates on your materials, including your urethane and your primers. Do not use any expired products on any vehicles. Also make sure that the material that you have selected is appropriate for the vehicle. Believe it or not all urethanes and primers are universal. The vehicle manufacturer that we're dealing with in this video does not specify any brands. All they require is that the materials that you're using are following the procedures for the manufacture of the materials and that the materials meet the FMVSS 212 safety standard. Preparation of the windshield includes installing suction cups to aid in the installation of the windshield. The first suction cup has been installed, the second one is being installed now. Make sure they're secure so the windshield does not come loose during installation. Next, apply masking tape or similarly appropriate tape to the windshield. Some people may prefer to apply this to the body first. That's a personal preference. That is to help hold and secure the glass in position once it's applied to the vehicle. Make sure that whatever tape you're using will not harm the paint. For example, duct tape, when left on the glass overnight, may leave residue or in fact pull up the paint on the vehicle. It may also affect any fresh paint if you are putting windshield in a vehicle that was recently painted. Shake the primer and make sure to remove the seal inside the primer. That seal should always be reinstalled after each use to prevent any moisture from going into the primer because of course it is a moisture cure product. Then you're going to grab a dauber here and make sure to saturate the dauber in primer. If you get excessive primer on the dauber, just squeeze a little bit out, similar to using a paintbrush. The dauber should hold enough to do the entire windshield. Apply an even coat of primer in the appropriate location on the windshield. It may be a good idea to look at the glass that was removed and use that as a determination of where the urethane bed is eventually going to be applied to the glass. Follow all the way along the windshield's frit, the black material, making sure that it's an even coat. Do not rebrush an area unless absolutely necessary. If you rebrush the area, it could in fact pull up some of the primer, as the primer does tend to dry very fast. Of course, follow all the procedures for the manufacture of the product. This product is fairly quick. Once it's applied, we can wait a few minutes and then apply our urethane to the primer bed. Windshield urethane has remarkably good cohesion, meaning it sticks really well to itself. Thus, the old urethane bed is an excellent place to apply urethane. However, if you've cut through the urethane bed, apply primer as necessary, but do not coat the entire bed. If you have burn-throughs to bare metal, apply epoxy primer. To prep the urethane tube, remove the seal from the bottom, and then open up the seal on the top. In this case, I'm using a tip. However, you could use any appropriate tool, just make sure that the tube is open up quite securely. Next, I'm going to prep the tip by cutting the tip into the appropriate shape. I want to make sure that I can recreate a urethane bed that is similar in width and height to what the OEM bed would have been before the windshield was originally installed. This does take a little bit of experience. Some of your tips will have marks or lines on them to help you decide where you may want to cut them, but of course you'll have to make that choice in the end because some urethane beds are much larger than others. For example, certain windshields on modern vehicles have very tall or wide beads, whereas smaller quarter glass has a very narrow and short bead. So I'm cutting the tip to make sure I can replicate that bead with this V shape as seen here. I'm now applying the urethane starting just inside the bottom corner and then working my way up the side and to the top. The reason for this is I want to prevent running out of urethane in a top corner or anywhere near the top where the glass is most prone to leaking. I prefer to limit my joints to the sides or preferably the bottom areas. As I get to a corner, I may need to make a 90-degree seam as I'm doing here, which can involve me stopping and lifting the tool and then continuing on the edge. You can use your finger as a guide to try and apply the urethane fairly straight. Use the tool to make sure that the urethane bed does go on evenly, so I'm trying to work at a consistent speed and make sure the height is very consistent as well. If you apply the bead unevenly, you could wind up with leaks, pressure cracks, or urethane that does ooze out and create an unsightly mess during the installation. You'll see in this next corner a different method for 90 degrees. Rather than lifting the tool, I come to the corner, leave the tool down, make my 90-degree corner, and then squeeze the trigger before I start moving again. That makes for a very clean corner. These are caulking tubes which will run out very soon, in which case I will change. You may choose to use larger sausage tubes, which will ensure you have a lot of material so you do not run out. Always inspect your urethane bed before installing the windshield, and in this case I had this butt joint in the corner. Traditionally, we used to overlap joints in the bottom, and in fact, you may still need to do that on some pieces of glass. However, in other pieces of glass, you may be better off doing a butt joint and then tooling the butt joint so that it has the same size and shape. This prevents pressure cracks or leaks. Installation is best with 2 people to make the installation easier and safer. While one person may be able to set the glass, that is both dangerous in the sense that you could hurt yourself, as well as problematic in the sense that you may not set the bead correctly or may get urethane somewhere you shouldn't. Coordinate with your partner to make sure the glass gets set in gently. Once the glass contacts the body, do not lift it out. Slide the glass up and down, left or right as necessary to position it in the window opening. Communicate with your partner, and once you're close to being happy with it, we can set the tape in position to hold the glass from sliding. Have a look at the glass for the height. So I'm looking at the height to the body. Then I'm going to look at the width, left to right, and then the height up and down, and make minor adjustments as necessary. Once you're happy with the positioning of the glass, reset the tape. It's also a good idea, and this is often missed, to install the interior trim at this stage. Once I have that garnish molding, the inner A-pillar trim installed, and any other interior trim that may affect the positioning of the windshield, have a look at the positioning of the frit. Sit in the driver's seat and look at it the way the driver would. Is the frit positioned evenly with the headliner and the garnish moldings? And then again, adjust the windshield left, right, up or down as necessary. Once you're happy with the positioning of the glass, then of course reapply the tape. Double check the positioning in all dimensions, and then we'll gently press down on the glass as seen here to help set the urethane. As you're pushing down on the glass, all you're doing is pushing down to set the urethane bead and feel for any soft or hard spots. Soft spots are indications that there's not enough urethane, which means that section could potentially leak later on. Hard spots means that there could be too much urethane, meaning that you could get a pressure crack. Therefore, it should feel even and consistent, thus firm all the way around the windshield. If you have soft and hard spots, you probably have a poor installation that will lead to problems later on. Most pressure cracks start in the corner and work towards the center of the windshield from excess pressure. A common bad habit is spanking the windshield, which creates soft and hard spots, uneven pressure. Always check for squeeze out. If urethane has squeezed out, it will need to be cleaned up. Cleaning urethane off of anything is challenging and messy. Thus, avoid excessive application of urethane. After the windshield has been set, the rest of the trim can be installed. If there's any ADAS features such as a forward-facing camera, follow OEM procedures for proper calibration before returning the vehicle to service. The vehicle can be leak tested right away by running cold water over the windshield with a garden hose. Do not use a pressure washer until the urethane is cured. Also, do not let the vehicle out onto the road until the windshield urethane has set up an appropriate amount of time as per the product data sheet.